I want to briefly, just very briefly, review the previous board update because I think it is important that we continue this as a story and that we continue to ground ourselves in the fact base that exists around this work. And then talk about the 24-25 budgeting process and our rationale for doing that. Talking a bit about zero-based budgeting and the process that central office went through. School-based budgeting, including campus needs assessments and campus improvement plans, and the alignment to resources. And then alignment with TASB. And then open up, obviously, for questions or discussion. So again, I just want to very quickly remind us all that I am in phase 4 of the plan, which is ACT. And again, grounding us in the slide from last time, that we are really making important decisions for the financial health, efficiency, effectiveness of the district to ensure that we are centering our decision-making on the students' needs and academic outcomes, and that we are aligning resources, all of our resources, human capital, our most precious resource, human capital, on student outcomes. And again, just walking the board and the community through phase 1, again, stakeholder engagement and deep listening. You just saw a video around all of that work that we've been doing over the past 90 days, but really focused quite a bit in the past couple of weeks on our employees, our bus drivers, our custodians, our maintenance workers, our cafeteria workers, just the people who really make sure that our kids are fed and cared for every single day. And that they arrive at school safe and get home safely. But again, all the groups that we've met with are listed here. Again, reminding the board about what's working, the content support for school leaders, teamwork, commitment, dedication, deep love for La Jolla ISD. Deep love for La Jolla ISD. Our parents want to be our partners and our students want to achieve. They have hopes and dreams, and they're very clear about what those are. So what's not working? And again, I said I would do a deeper dive on this in June, but really, again, a lack of customer service orientation over and over again. People don't feel as though we, as a district, are here to serve. Really, that came very alive in operations, transportation, and facilities. But they are also a huge concern in many other focus groups across the district. Duplication of services and lack of role clarity. That plays a really big role in our decision-making around positions and carrying them forward. We have to have clarity of role. Otherwise, what is the position responsible for in terms of edifying student growth? What are we responsible for across the district in titles that are similar from building to building to building? A fear of reassignment and retaliation was very present in many, many focus groups. And so that's one that I added to the slide from last time. And then a lack of systems and structures to ensure that processes and policies are followed in multiple areas. And so again, as we continue on this work, I want everyone to know, and we'll talk a little bit about it tonight, that policy will be followed. Again, I always think it's important because sometimes when times get tough and decisions have to be made that impact individuals in their homes, in their families, food and shelter, we forget that we all are aware of where we are as a district since 2011. And so I bring back this slide to remind us that we've been having this conversation since I got here. 2011, TASB report recommended that we absorb 139 positions and no major adjustments were made. In 2019, TASB told us again that we were 300 plus employees over our peer districts, and we were exceeding $20 million in employees. The district faced at that point a $15.4 million deficit in 2019. TASB again recommended the elimination of over 206 positions in 2023, including natural teacher turnover to save $24.3 million. But in order to balance the budget 23-24, the district used almost $27 million from ESSER, a fund that was going away, a fund that September of this year is no longer going to exist. And then and again, in each of these steps, no major adjustments were made to either spending or to human capital. So again, going into 24-25, or 23-24, we started the fiscal year with 556 permanent positions on ESSER. Currently facing approximately $19.5 million if we do nothing. And we cannot continue to exist in that way and do great things for our kids. We cannot continue to run a deficit budget, because then we can't do other things for our schools, our campuses, our kids, our after-school programs, all the things that our community wants of us. So we kept analyzing and deploying best practices and really thinking about where we needed to lean into these best practices. And again, I won't go over these because we talked about them in our meeting last time, but just wanted to remind the community and the board that this is the work in phase 3. Again, aligning evidence-based practices with how we were structuring central office, aligning evidence-based practices and high-quality instructional materials, really thinking about the very best way to be efficient, effective, and not redundant in positions. Again, central office is here to just do the jobs that campuses cannot or should not be doing. So phase 4 is about taking action. And we're continuing. I want to really have folks understand here. We are continuing to prioritize keeping cuts as far away from the classroom as we possibly can. That is a priority for all of us. We know that our teachers in the classroom are the levers of change. So we are prioritizing this every decision we make. We are eliminating vacancies. We are eliminating ineffective programs. We are eliminating redundancies. We are leaning into spaces and eliminating where there is a lack of role clarity. And by that, when I ask people across the district, what does X position do, and we cannot define it, and you get 47 different answers from 47 different people, we have to pause and say, how effective is that role in what it is actually designed to do? And are we using our resources as efficiently as we should, knowing that this particular role, whatever role it may be, is designed to provide X services or X support? And when we cannot define that as a district, we have to take pause. So we're reimagining our organizational structures, and we're also applying academic return of investment. As we analyze programs and as we analyze platforms and instructional materials, we have to ask ourselves, if we've been paying for something for 4 or 5 years, how are we yielding results as a result of that expenditure? That's academic return on investment. If we keep pouring money in the same thing and we're not seeing results, we have to ask, what is the return of investment? And I ask that not only about platforms and programs, but I ask that also about positions. We have to have honest conversations about that. So what did we do? We implemented zero-based budgeting for central office. We asked all of our departments to say, don't look at your last year's budget. Tell me what you need, and tell me why you need it. Name it in your budget. And then we did a comparison to last year and years prior, but we really asked all of our central office departments to start with zero and build with what you believe you need in order to service children in this district. We aligned our staffing allocation model with recommendations from TASB, which is the Texas Association of School Boards, which clearly gives guidance to school boards and districts all over the state of Texas around what foundational support should look like in schools in order for schools to run efficiently, effectively, and service the children of that community. We build budgets with our campuses and with campus need in mind. We revised staffing allocations aligned with TASB, but then we involved our principals in the process, and we gave them voice, and we gave them choice in terms of funding and how they wanted to use it. We are also looking at strategic reorganization at central office, and we're going to continue to communicate over and over and over again because our community is our partner in this work. So the new budgeting process protocol keeps schools at the center of the budgeting process. What do campuses need in order to thrive? We are empowering our principals to drive their campus decision-making. We are giving them control within their budget allocations with support and with central office approval. This is a new muscle for our principals. They're getting guidance and support from our area superintendents, from HR, from myself, from Mr. Nagella, in terms of how to do this work, keeping their campus needs assessments at the center of their decision-making. We're aligning with TASB guidelines and best practices, and we're talking about transparency in the budgeting process, which is why tonight I am here not only walking the board through this, but the community. And again, leaning into academic return on investment. So this year's budgeting process, again, we conducted departmental deep dives, right? Had conversations with each department to say, well, what do you do? How do you service folks? What are our ways of working? We looked at data, we looked at ESSER funds, we looked at FTEs, that's full-time positions, and current programming. There's a lot of analysis there and a lot of conversation. We led focus groups to gain additional insight, because it's one thing to sit and have conversation in central office, it's another thing to hear from the field. It's another thing to hear from teachers, from principals, from assistant principals, from coaches, on and on and on, and all of our operations folks. So it's one thing, again, to do a deep dive analysis, but it's another thing to hear from the people that you are here to serve. We reviewed all of the data, and when I say data, I mean hard data and soft data, qualitative and quantitative. And then we asked central office departments to start building their budgets from zero. And then school leaders received their initial staffing allocations based upon the TASB guidance and in alignment with their campus needs assessment. They will later develop campus improvement plans once we as a board set goals and constraints. And so then they will design campus improvement plans along with their CNA and along with board goals in order to ensure that there is achievement for our students. So again, just being very transparent, the old approach was central office takes the lead on making FTE decisions. The new approach is that school needs are considered in the budgeting process, and again, providing the foundational support aligned with TASB for each and every one of our campuses. Our middle schools, in fact, are quite over-allocated in terms of TASB guidelines because we knew that that was a space where there was essential support needed, and had we not exceeded the guidelines, there would have been a dramatic impact to staff. And through each decision that we make, we not only look at how is this supporting the campus, but also asking the really tough questions of ourselves. What impact will this have on our employees? And if we make these changes now, is that too much, too fast, too quick? I've been very honest with the board and the community that this will not be a one-year process. If we were to create this as a one-year process, it would be devastating. So we wanted to also be very thoughtful in terms of where it was too much, too fast, even though it is aligned to TASB guidelines. Central office departments in the old approach just roll over their budgets from year to year. That was the process. So how does it work? Everybody just gets their budgets, right? Now we're requiring departments to justify every expense from scratch, starting from $0. I wish more of my budget team were here because I drive them crazy every single day, asking about, well, what if we did this efficiency, or what if we did this efficiency? Give me an analysis on what we're spending on printers and ink. Give me an analysis on how much we're spending on just office supplies. We have a lot of paper clips. And so we're really doing that department by department, budget line by budget line analysis, and we're having those conversations. And they're smiling because we are genuinely in these conversations where we're trying to find every efficiency that we can so that it isn't all on human capital to close budget gaps. And then district leaders were asked to address redundancies just when they were asked in the past, but now we are encouraging regular and thorough review of expenses, eliminating unnecessary spending, such as what I was just talking about. Moving on, campus-based budgeting, their campus needs assessment. And so right here on the slide, there are two definitions of what a comprehensive needs assessment is. Our school leaders were asked to think very critically based upon data on the school's strengths and challenges. And we worked on these CNAs with our campus principals for a few weeks. Then they were to go back to their campuses and engage their community. And again, by community, I mean large C, their teachers, their staff, their parents, their SBDM, all of the committees that they have, so that there was campus voice in the needs assessment. We also will continue to ask them to plan their comprehensive improvement plan as we go through this budgeting process. So again, just walking the board and the community through a new school-based budgeting process. The old process is that FTE allocations were developed by central office, and they were just given, rolled over from year to year, whether those were the positions that the campus truly needed or not. FTE allocations were given to school leaders prior to their completion of the comprehensive needs assessment and then rolled over from year to year to year. And the new process on the right talks about TASB recommendations, principals developing CNAs, then working with their teams to develop improvement plans. Principals then work with their supervisors to align additional funding from these processes to what they need. There is an order and a sequence to how we do budgeting, and it has to be aligned to resources, but most importantly, it has to be aligned to student need. Student need and our students and their achievement is at the center of all of these decisions. So TASB recommendations in the new budget process. Schools received foundational FTE allocations based upon the staffing model recommended by TASB at elementary, at middle, and at high school. And so this is a space, I'm going to be very honest and transparent in this presentation, that was painful for some of our schools because we had been over allocating schools for years. Very specifically, our high schools. And so this is a space and place where we are seeing impact at a level that is causing discomfort. Principals could purchase now additional resources and additional positions from state and federal entitlements. So now instead of positions rolling over from year to year to year, we gave them a budget. And we said, now that you've done your campus needs assessment, here is funding that they're supposed to get from Title I, state comp, right, from at-risk funding, all of their entitlements, and they make the purchases from the funding that they receive, whether it be programs, whether it be professional development, or positions, and those are just a few that I'm throwing out, They make the decision. The principal is the CEO of their building and should be accountable not only for developing the budget, but for improving student outcomes with their staff. Central office, then determinations were made to fund the foundational positions using the zero-based budgeting exercise, and schools continue to receive student-driven adjustments to FTE teacher allocations. So again, this is one I really want to lean into because we are keeping cuts as far away from the classroom as we can. Checkmark number 4 discusses student-driven adjustments to FTE teacher allocations happened this year. But that happened last year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. When there is a drop in enrollment, there are adjustments to teacher allocations. That happened every year prior to my arrival. So people are saying, but we said no cuts to teachers. I never said no cuts to teachers. I said I will do my best to keep cuts away from the classroom. What we are doing here is adjusting based upon enrollment, a practice that has happened in this district for years. And when there are enrollment shifts, we have a fiscal responsibility to then do staffing adjustments in alignment with enrollment and ADA. So again, our principals then received a budget book. It was an Excel document, but it had multiple tabs. Tab 1, Campus Roster A, showed their enrollment per grade with allocation increases or decreases. Some campuses got an increase because their enrollment increased. Some campuses saw a decrease because their enrollment dropped. Campus Roster B is their allocation by English language or dual language with specific allocations for each program, again, based upon their enrollment. Tab 3 in the budget book was their procurement list. What positions could they purchase out of the funding that we were giving in order to make up areas in their campus needs assessment? And then tab 4 was here's your budget. Here's what you are entitled to spend based upon your at-risk population, your eco-dis population, or other funding sources, such as emergent bilingual funding, special education funding, and local funding. Funding that they received from what is called Fund 199, which is our local funding. So I wanted to provide the community and the district just a sample of this is a simple spreadsheet that our principals, it doesn't say a school's name, but this is an example of one particular school, and this was tab 4. And it showed them how much money they had to spend rather than central office determining how they were spending their money. It puts the decision-making back in the hands of the principal and back in the hands of the community when the principal did their campus needs assessment and really determined what was needed. So this is just an example. Now this is a place, again, that I want the community and our board to hear me and the team loudly and clearly. There are 5 criteria when program changes are recommended by which employees are impacted. So it is not that we are just making random decisions and closing positions here or there. There is criteria that we go through in order to decide which employees will be impacted by this. And this is in board policy, and it is also widely used across the state. The first one is qualifications. Do people have the certifications or the specialization that they need in order to effectively do the job that they are in or projected to be in next year? The second criteria is performance, right? You take into account their evaluations. Are there any disciplinary actions? Have there been demotions? Have there been write-ups? And we have to go through these sequentially. It's not like we just pick what order we go through these. It's sequential. The third criteria is extra duties. So for example, is there an assistant principal who also is a coach? Is there an assistant principal who also is a grade level sponsor, where others may not have these extra duties? And so that is the third criteria. Fourth is position tenure. So date of promotion or hire to their current role, not within the district, but hire in their current role. And then the last one is seniority. That is the last criteria. Now, as a district, this one's challenging for us. We have not always not only implemented policy fairly and accurately across the board, but we have not followed legal counsel's advice and implemented all 5. And so that is what we did in terms of following policy this year as we make decisions about impacted employees. We've shared this information with our principals. They are aware, and they are having conversations at their campuses about how these decisions are being made. Next slide. So I, again, want to be very clear. Impacted employees will not receive a contract for 24-25. That is very new for La Jolla ISD. When there were position adjustments based upon enrollment, everybody was still offered a contract. We will not engage in that practice if the board votes this evening to continue to just offer contracts for positions that will no longer exist. That is not how we close a budget gap. We have to actually shrink the number of positions. But what I will guarantee our employees in this district, impacted employees, is that we are going to do absolutely everything in our power to ensure that you are first in line for vacancies that you're qualified for. We will have vacancies. On average, the historical average is we have between 100 and 150 teaching vacancies a year. Our first priority will be to put our impacted employees in positions that they are qualified for. We are also going to open up a principal and assistant principal job posting for impacted assistant principals, deans of instruction, and those who qualify for those roles. Why not promote from within if we have people who are ready to take on principalships or assistant principalships? So let's open a pool, right? Let's open a job posting, and let's actually have a process by which people apply to be an assistant principal or a principal, and we vet them, and if qualified, let's place them when we have vacancies. And we're also strongly encouraging our impacted employees to apply for positions that are currently posted on the website. They are really open for people to apply to. So we want them, if you're qualified or interested, to apply. Please apply. So I want to assure the community that we don't take this lightly. I don't take it lightly. And that our goal is to ensure that any impacted employee continues to stay home at La Jolla ISD. A couple more slides and then I will wrap up. I do want to remind both the board and the public that in the state of Texas, we are funded through ADA, average daily attendance. And while we do not receive funding based upon enrollment, when our enrollment declines, we have less students by which to count ADA. But I also wanted to share the number of students that are counting in ADA and enrollment, and you'll see the decline over the past couple of years. That impacts revenue, our funds that come in. So we have less funding than we have in years past. Next slide. Other factors that are impacting our budget. There has been no increase in state funding. We have gotten no relief from Austin. And so that is impacting us not just us, but many districts across the state. We have the loss of ESSER funding and our need to respond urgently to district needs around employee retention because of the employees that were on ESSER. We need to retain most of those positions, not all, but many, and so that impacts our budget. And then lastly, things that people don't think about around inflation. I don't know if we've all noticed, but in our personal lives, groceries cost more, right? Bills cost more post-COVID. Well, school districts are feeling that immensely as well. Gas and fuel has skyrocketed. Costs of buses have skyrocketed. Costs of appliances, facilities materials, custodial materials, parts, all have increased in price. So when we have to purchase light bulbs, just talked to Mr. Garcia the other day about light bulbs, they're expensive and they're way more costly now than they were pre-COVID. Construction costs are through the roof. And so projects that we may have bid a year ago, now we go back to implement them, prices increased for labor and the construction costs for the supplies and materials. And then lastly, just supplies and materials, instructional materials for the classroom have also increased. So those impact our budgets. So in closing, I really want to assure the board, the community, and our employees that our number one job is to gather the names of all employees that will be impacted. And then we will host employee information sessions around future employment opportunities and current vacancies within La Jolla ISD. We want you here. We want you here. We will work diligently. Dr. Villarreal and her team are going to start putting out information sessions so that our employees can not only learn what next, but learn what's available. Because again, we don't want break in service. We want to make sure that our employees are in positions before their contract ends, so there is no break in service. And we will continue this budget processing as departments and as central office and as campus work on it. We have the staffing guidelines to work on, we have the compensation manual, and then finally, at the end of June, we will present you with a comprehensive budget. So I apologize that this was a bit lengthy, but I think it is imperative that our employees and our community, as well as the board, understand the work that we're doing, and that we don't take any of this lightly, and that we genuinely care for each of our employees and want to make sure that they're okay, as we also have a fiscal responsibility to the district, to the community, and the children and families that it serves in order to provide everything that a school district should be able to provide. Thank you.